Well, first you say your name and where did you born and when did you born.
No.
Then talk the story about your family. What was your business of your father? How they educate himself? Where he born? And come to your mother. Then where she born and how she educated herself.
Okay.
Yeah.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. My name is Garry Eugene Massey Jr. My Islamic name is Abdul Shahid. I was born and raised in Kansas City, Kansas. My parents are from African Americans, both African Americans. My mother is originally from a place called Tunica, Mississippi. That's where she was born. My father is from Kansas City, Kansas. I'm not from a rich background. My family in general is my father. He's now dead. He's now deceased. But I think he only received a high school education, basically. He was by trade a carpenter. And custodial jobs. That's what his main thing was. My mother, she didn't, because she had children pretty early, she didn't finish college right away. She's currently now in her 60s finishing her bachelor's degree. Like her mother, my grandmother, she's now finishing her bachelor's degree in religious sciences. My mother's side of the family is predominantly Baptist. My father's side of the family is predominantly Catholic. The area that I'm from, like I said, is a place called Kansas City, Kansas. It's a very small town in general. It's a metropolitan area split by a river. There's a Kansas City, Missouri, Kansas City, Kansas. It's not that, I said metropolitan, it's not really that metropolitan. But it's not a really small town. It's not really big. That's where I did most of my education. I went through elementary school, middle school. In high school, I did a college preparatory program. I finished that. I graduated.
You start to talk about, don't look to camera, right?
Okay.
You start to look your education?
Yes, my education.
No, don't go.
Okay, I'm
Please
sorry.
talk about your kids when you were 5, 6, 7.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
If you were going to the church, what was your relation with your father and mother, and some good or sad memories from your grandparents?
Okay, basically, when I was younger, our family was not that religious. In general, my family was not that religious in general. My childhood is I don't want to say it was happy. At the same time, it wasn't really sad. We were a very poor family, working class family, I guess you could say. My mother and my father, and later on, maybe when I was in 3rd or 4th grade, they received a divorce. They divorced. I have I have 4 brothers and 3 sisters. But in general, my childhood was pretty decent. I don't remember it being bad. Just the fact about being poor, mainly. Nothing really more than that as far as incidences or anything like that I could really claim to have affected my life besides the poverty, I guess. After that, after my parents' divorce, which I say about 3rd or 4th grade, I kind of went through school with my siblings. It was kind of, I won't say it's normal, but it was not something that was very different at the time, you know, to be from a divorced family or a family whose parents were divorced. Excuse me. Like I said, I went through middle school and high school. Once I got to high school, I was in a college preparatory program. And it was during high school that I became Muslim. In my sophomore year, or my 10th grade year, I became Muslim. Probably because of my interaction with one of my relatives. He was Muslim.
You came to converting story?
Yes. No, don't come there yet.
No, not yet.
Okay.
You finish all your school period, then you talk about your working conditions.
Okay.
And even here, till here.
Okay.
You know.
Okay. So when I became Muslim in high school, I finished high school, which was kind of difficult for me, trying to practice Islam a little bit, and with all the rigors of high school. But after high school, I worked for about a year at a company called Walmart. It's kind of normal. And then I was accepted to go to the Islamic University of Medina in Saudi Arabia. And there, pretty much I was 19 years old. I went there in August 1999. I studied Arabic for 3 years, and I did a bachelor's in Islamic theology. And then I graduated in 2006. After I graduated with my degree in Islamic theology, I kind of hung out in Saudi Arabia for a while. I worked for about a year. I worked in what's called the Eastern Province. It's called Ash-Sharqiyya, the Eastern Province, teaching English as a foreign language. There I had a lot of interactions with workers. I had students that were Saudis that were seeking to go to master's degree programs. A student that was from Italy seeking to just work out with his English language because he didn't really use his language a lot in Italy. Also, I had Turkish students. I had other students. Just it was a different time for me, and that was really where I think I really started my professional career as into education or in teaching. After that, in 2007, I came back to Kansas City. At that time, it was pretty much in I think August 2007. It was just the beginning of the Great Recession, I guess, and I was supposed to go back and work in Saudi Arabia. I had some issues trying to get the residency visa going, and in the middle of that process, my father died. And so once that happened, I decided to stay in the States, and that's when I started to look for work in the States. And after that, one of the things that I was mainly qualified for, besides possibly going to Iraq and translating, was to be a school teacher. So in the process of 2 or 3 months, or in a course of 2 or 3 months rather, I put in some resumes, made some phone calls, and I had a friend in Texas at this school, in Dallas, Texas, that was a principal, and he said, you know, we may be able to help you out. I have an opening currently, and so come down for a couple of days and substitute teach for us, and if you like it, we'll keep you on, and you know, we will like each other and everything, we'll keep you on. And so in January 2008, that's where I started working in a school called IQA, or Islamic Association of North Texas Quranic Academy, and I've been here ever since. As far as my work experience is pretty much concerned. Yeah. Now, in the process, and additionally, of working for IQA, I currently, at the request of our Imam, Dr. Yusuf Kowalski, am the manager for Sufa Islamic Seminary, where I try to manage some things. It's a very, it's kind of like a startup company, I guess you can say. Try to put some things down because of my background in Islamic studies, and additionally my background of the system here in America and education just a little bit. And so that's what I do. So I currently have 2 jobs. I hold 2 positions, being an Islamic studies and Arabic teacher with IQA, and additionally to being the manager for Sufa Islamic Seminary.
The other question is, before you became a Muslim, what was your knowledge about Islam? Then how you became a Muslim, converted to
Okay, before Islam, like I said before, my family wasn't very a religious Christian family. We used to go to church sporadically, not all the time. Easter, possibly Christmas, a wedding, or a funeral. I would say about when I was 13, about 1993 or 94, unbeknownst to me, my grandmother was diagnosed with cancer. So maybe a little time before that, they didn't tell us. And at that time, my family members, including my mother, were becoming a little more religious. My mother was becoming a little more religious. And that's where she, she started to attend church a little more regularly. First it was by herself, and then she used to ask us to go, and we were like, no, we don't want to go to church. I want to watch football. That's one, more or less thing. I want to watch football and stay at home. And then it came to a point where she started making us go. And so we started going to church on a regular basis. In that time, I was about maybe 1993, 94, and my personal feelings towards it, it was it was something I didn't really like. I wasn't really used to it, and I really didn't take affinity to it at all. My knowledge of Islam at that time was probably more or less not really there, even though I did have a family member that was Muslim. Basically whatever we learned in school, the 5 pillars, Saudi Arabia, Kaaba, or something like that, Mecca, those type of things were more or less that at this time also. About 93, 94, a movie about Malcolm X came out. And so my information about Islam became a little more with the history in America. They had what's called the Black Muslims, or the Nation of Islam. And so that was generally what most people thought of when they thought of Muslims and Islam. But you started to clarify that a little more, or that started to be clarified a little more probably after the movie Malcolm X, just a tad bit, not completely. And I thought it was pretty cool. Shortly afterwards, I started to work for my cousin who was Muslim, and he started introducing me to Islam and to books. I would, in his store, he would sell oils and incense, pagers, and things of that nature, kind of like a variety store. And Sometimes I would, if there was a downtime or anything, I would go and read the books that he would have on Islam. And sometimes I would go with him to certain places. Maybe I go with him because he would close down his shop and go with him on Jummah, on the Friday prayer, and we said at that time. And that was the beginning. My real story of becoming a Muslim actually starts off with my cousin. And it really goes back to his father. My cousin, his mother and my mother are sisters. And he's my maternal cousin. In the 70s, she married a man, a Muslim man. This man, he became Muslim in I want to say 60s, in the late 1960s, maybe 1967 or so, I'm not for sure. Dr. Saidi Diwaru, Allah yarhamu, may Allah have mercy on his soul, he's now deceased. And they got married, they had a child, the child's name was Tariq, or Tariq, as we say. And very shortly afterwards, they got a divorce. I know this is more into his story, but Tariq, he didn't really grow up in my aunt. She had accepted Islam, then she went away from it. And during the divorce, after the divorce, my cousin would stay with his mother. She's no longer a practicing Muslim, doesn't practice Muslim, doesn't profess the faith. And he would go to his father's every once in a while. Once he got older, he started to practice. Some events happened in his life, and he started to practice Islam a little more. And that's when he opened up his shop, and that's how I began to work for him. And as a result, in a very weird and quirky way, as a result, I started to work for him, became an employee, and ended up becoming Muslim. After I became Muslim, I was 15 at the time. He would always encourage me to learn, and so from day one, he was like, he would encourage me. He said, "Well, listen, inshallah, you're not married, and you seem pretty smart, and inshallah, so we'll send you to Medina or Mecca or Morocco or Pakistan." This is way before 9/11 and all those types of things. And so we'll send you to some place where you can learn Arabic and learn about Islam and come back and teach us. And so that was always kind of like his encouragement. And during my first 3 or 4 years of Islam, 3 years of Islam, with that encouragement, he informed me about a group of professors coming from the Islamic University of Medina, and he said, "Well, listen, they're going to have interviews and some lessons and interviews. Are you interested in going?" And I said, "Sure, why not?" And so he pretty much left his shop and closed up his shop and left it with someone, and we went to Detroit, Michigan in the summer of 1998, and he took me there, and as a result, I was one of the 13 students that got accepted that year in 1998, and that's how I got over. So I feel that I had a very nurturing Islamic upbringing for the most part, and that's basically how I became Muslim and how I became to study Islam for the most part.
After you became a Muslim, what was the reaction of your community, positive or negative?
Okay, when I first became a Muslim in '95, in '95, I became Muslim on Christmas vacation, of all things. I became Muslim Christmas vacation. It took me some time to actually talk to my mom about it, and my other family. And but after I became Muslim, maybe about a week or so, I told my mom. She started to cry. She cried. It was something that was contradictory to her newfound faith, and it was we had some issues in the beginning due to this, but also my other family members, it was kind of seemed as something extreme or along those lines. Or why would you become a Muslim? My father, though he was divorced from my mother, he told me basically, you're a young man now, and you can, try and make your own decisions as long as you're happy for it, which is, with that decision. And so that was the main thing. My friends, or who I thought were my friends at the time, I saw them once I started to practice a little more, and abstain from things, because that's the easiest thing to do, is to abstain from. And I started to abstain from things. I saw that I had a lot of free time. People that I thought were my friends and that I wanted to hang out, I had a choice to make. And so either I would go and do some bad things, or hang out with people I shouldn't really be hanging out with, or I can do other things. And so eventually it was kind of a mutual type thing. We stopped hanging out so much. I stopped getting invited to parties, those type of things. And because I was kind of what they call here square, didn't want to do certain things. So because at the time I took it a little more serious, took Islam seriously, tried to anyway. And so that was the general feeling. At school, I had some run-ins, not too many, not a whole lot. I had some run-ins trying to pray Jummah. They wouldn't let me at that time. They wouldn't let me go to Jummah every Friday, and my mom wasn't really feeling the whole Islam thing. And so what I would do is I would just every third Friday, according to basically the hadith of the Prophet, I wouldn't, every third Friday I would skip school. I would skip school and I would go to Jummah. Every third Friday, that's what I did. I would skip school and I go to Jummah. Because at that time there was it was something very new to a lot of people, especially in my area. I used to pray in school. During lunchtime or anything like that. I had one run-in where I was praying in the locker room. Generally the locker room no one was there. But I had one run-in where a guy decided he wanted to throw a sock at me. And I had to break my prayer, and I confronted him. He got a little scared because he thought I wasn't able to do anything once I was praying. But that was all that happened. Generally, most people respected you and respected kind of your beliefs in general. And so I wasn't a popular person, but at the same time, it's like, okay, yeah, that's what he does. That's kind of how it was. That's what Garry does. So I wasn't really picked on or bothered because of my faith. I had that luxury. One of the things that did I ever change my mind about Muslims or Islam? Not necessarily. One of the things that happened is that, number one, I learned about Tawheed before Islam. The oneness of God. I learned about basic Islamic belief in God, and that's something that really stuck with me. That was a belief that I understood, and it was so simple to me. I really understood Tawheed. I really understood that this was kind of like the purpose of my life, and so it was real easy for me to kind of take that. And once that was there before, I didn't have too many problems afterwards. I actually had problems in taking that step. I want to say, well, listen, before I become Muslim, I want to go out and do things and maybe have one last party or something like that. But that wasn't the case. Actually, when I took my shahada, the Sheikh Abdul Rahman, he said, listen, man, you could step out this door. He explained Tawheed to me, the oneness of God. And then he said, listen, man, are you ready to take the shahada? And I said, well, maybe. And he said, listen, if you go out this door, you may get hit by a car. You may be at home and be in a drive-by. And so you need to really think about this, and you will be able to meet your Lord correctly. And so that really put some focus in some things. And that's when I actually took my shahada. And like I said before, I felt that I was nurtured. And so one of the things that the Muslims told me was that Islam is perfect and Muslims are not. And that was something that I really had to think about. I really had to think about. And I ended up really seeing, not every Muslim is going to be the perfect Muslim, follow and everything, or what we call it here, being an angel. And so that was something that they told me very early. It was excellent advice because sometimes we see this perfect system of Islam and we expect those people to follow this perfect system to be perfect, and that is not the case. And so that advice I even give today. I give same people, newer Muslims, that same advice. Islam is good. Islam is perfect. This belief system is there. But the way Muslims practice is not always perfect. And so I didn't really ever have an issue with thinking about going back from Islam. That for me, alhamdulillah, that was something that I don't think I had to deal with for the most part. If I had to deal with anything, especially in the form of belief, if I had to deal with anything, it was more or less some of the practices. Just regular issues, girls, just the things that the average teenager or young man will come into contact with and kind of drive him away from Islam. But I don't think I never had a moment of I didn't believe in Allah and I didn't believe in the oneness of God. That never, after I learned that, I never doubted that. I never doubted that. In Islam, all things are beautiful, but which one of ideas impresses you more? The most beautiful thing about Islam is, like I said before, Tawheed, the simplicity of worshiping Allah, the simplicity of belief. It's very simple. Actually, I had one of the young Muslims here. His family is originally from Pakistan, and he asked that question. He's like, what is the thing that really changed you most about Islam, or you think really changed? And I think that the most beautiful thing about Islam is its simplicity in purpose. You are to worship Allah the Most High. You worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone with no partners, and you are here to be a good person. I mean, that's basically it. I mean, you can't get that simple in that. Now, yes, there's technical issues here and there and other things of that nature, but on a much simplified scale, and you don't have to go that far to get that simple. You're here to worship Allah. You're here to make sure that Allah is a focus in your life, and I I really appreciate that beauty. It's extremely simple. It's extremely beautiful. It's comprehensive, and I don't think you can find that sense of purpose and that blend of belief and worship. The blend of belief and worship in any other religion. You know, you can't. This is the truth. So I don't think that you can really do that. You know, Islam is its beauty is in its simplicity and the oneness of God and the oneness of purpose, and you're worshiping that God.